In this video, we're going to look at types of integration. But before we look at that, let's take a step back. Business expansion. Business expansion, so expanding a business, is either internal or external. Internal, another name for that, is organic growth, and that could be through new outlets, for example. On the other side, you've got external business expansion, and that is going to be through the other name for it, which is integration. There are 4 types of integration that you need to know, and they are horizontal, forwards vertical, backwards vertical, and conglomerate. Let's go through them. So, horizontal is when one firm joins with another firm at the same stage of the supply chain. So by supply chain, we're talking about, are they primary, secondary, or tertiary? And are they the same stage? So they are both primary, or both secondary, or both tertiary. And are they in the same industry? So same industry, same phase of the supply chain. If you are confused with the supply chain, check out my business sectors video for more information. Main thing you need to know is that most businesses are actually in the tertiary, in the UK anyway, are in the tertiary phase of the supply chain. And an example of that happening is Paddy Power and Betfair. Both bookmakers, they merge type of horizontal integration. Why did they do that? Number one, well, they got economies of scale by doing it because they're at the same stage of the supply chain, so they were able to increase their output and reduce their average cost. Number two, well, by doing that, that created less competition. And by creating less competition, it meant Paddy Power and Betfair now had more market power. And if you have more market power, you have the ability to possibly increase the prices and also increase the profits. So forwards vertical integration is when one firm joins with another firm that is further up the supply chain and in the same industry. Example of that happening is Booker's, which is a wholesaler of groceries. They joined with Budgens, the newsagents, in 2015. So that's an example of someone being Booker's in the secondary sector and joining with Budgens that's in the tertiary sector. Why did Booker's do that? Well, one, they guaranteed a point of sale. They guaranteed making the sales of Booker's to Budgens. And they guaranteed a point of sale being the outlet that they've got. And number two, by guaranteeing that sale, well, now they can deny the competition. Because think about now, if Booker's own Budgens, they can stop the rivals of Booker's in the secondary sector selling to Budgens. Number 3 is vertical backwards integration. So when one firm joins with another firm that is further down the supply chain, but also in the same industry. So an example of that is Tesco's in 2018 actually joined with Booker's. So Tesco's, the tertiary sector, they joined with Booker's, as we discussed there, which is in the secondary sector. Why did Tesco's do that? Well, one, they wanted to guarantee a source of raw materials, produce, or components. And number two, if Tesco's buys Booker's, well then they're denying the raw materials, produce, components to the competition. So now, for example, Sainsbury's, they won't be allowed to use Booker's because Tesco's will block that from happening. So it could force up the costs of your competition. And finally, there is conglomerate integration, which is when one firm joins with another firm that is in a completely different industry, and it could also be in a completely different phase of the supply chain. So it could be the primary, the secondary, or the tertiary. In my example on the board, I've got someone in industry A, in the primary sector, actually merging with someone in the tertiary sector in industry B. To be honest, it can be anything as long as it's completely different. That's conglomerate. The biggest conglomerate in the world is General Electric. They have done mergers and takeovers with so many different types of industries. They now own bits of aircrafts, energy, finance, oil, water, software, wind turbines. These are totally different industries. Why do they do that? Well, one, to reduce risk. Because you're going across all these different areas, you're reducing your risk. It's what's known as diversification. And two, by doing this, potentially you could argue you have a wider array of ideas and a wider array of expertise and a wider array of innovation. And the final point is, if in this case of conglomerate integration, you do actually move two companies together that are quite quite close, maybe in different industries, but quite close, like YouTube and Google's, then you could argue you could actually get economies of scale. And this is what's known as lateral integration, which is a closer form of conglomerate integration. That's extra. Hope that helps. Good luck with your exams.